Today on AX512 is like
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's not afternoon yet. A minute to go and then it will be the afternoon. But how are you doing anyway? You all well? Great. You're very welcome to Dublin. My name is John Ryan, and on behalf of Do Dublin, I'd like to thank you for spending a bit of time here with us in the city. This is the original city tour, 24 stops along this route. We stop at each and every one of these stops, visiting all of the major attractions here in the city. We have two routes. We have the main city tour, and we also have our Docklands tour. The Docklands tour can be picked up here from O'Connell Street. So we're going to turn left of these lights onto O'Connell Street. It is the main street here in the city of Dublin. It's also one of the widest thoroughfares in Europe, and it's named after a gentleman called Daniel O'Connell. Daniel is also known as the Liberator or the Emancipator, and in 1829 he was instrumental in securing Catholic emancipation. The Act of Parliament returned many civil and religious liberties back to Catholics here in Ireland and across England, and this was a repeal of the penal laws. These laws are also known as the Popery Code, were enacted from 1665. They denied Catholics any voting rights. They weren't allowed to own houses, horses or land. Children born to Catholics had to be raised as Protestants. Catholics only allowed to marry within inside their own communities and forbidden from practicing their religion. All these penal laws were done away with by the Emancipation Act of Daniel in 1829. Now the most prominent feature that we have on the street today is here on your right, and this is the Spire of Dublin, or the Monument of Light. It was erected in the year 2003 and was designed by an English architect named Ian Ritchie. It's 121 metres high, 3 metres at the base, and tapers to a mere 15 centimetres at the top. It's said to be the tallest freestanding sculpture in the world and the only monument on the street without a political or historical association. It symbolises the people of Ireland going forward into the new millennium. Now, like most monuments here in Dublin, we've given it a number of nicknames. And some of the names associated with the spire, well, we call it the stiletto in the ghetto. It's also known as the pole in the hole, and some people even refer to it as the rod to God. There are a number of other names associated with it, but I'm not going to tell you them because we have been forbidden from using them over the airwaves. Stop number 2, South Bend on O'Connell Street. Now the next stop on our tour will be stop number 3. It serves Trinity College and the Book of Kells. At the very top of O'Connell Street, overlooking the bridge, is the monument to Daniel O'Connell. It was designed by a gentleman called John Henry Foley and was unveiled to the people of Dublin back in the year 1882. Daniel stands at the very top of the podium, and beneath him then there are figures which represent church, trade, craft and professions. They surround Éireann, the Gaelic name for Ireland, who is trampling her shackles and holding the Catholic Emancipation Act. The 4 winged victories at the base of the monument are O'Connell's virtues of eloquence, patriotism, fidelity and courage. So we're going to leave the north side of Dublin, we're going to cross the River Liffey at O'Connell Bridge, heading for the south side where we're going to spend a bit of time. And we're going to make our way up Delir Street. This street is named after Jeremiah Delir. Back in the middle of the 18th century, he was a Huguenot silversmith here in Dublin. He also spent a period of time as the head of the Wide Street Commission, the people responsible for the development of the city in the Georgian period. In 1755 he was also the Sheriff of Dublin, and that wasn't enough to keep him busy. Back in the year 1803 he was also one of the founding members of the Commercial Bank, the Bank of Ireland. As you go through the lights, the first buildings of Trinity College are directly in front of us, and this is Ireland's oldest university. Founded in the year 1592 at the request of Queen Elizabeth I. She was very concerned at the time that her subjects had to travel to France, Italy and Spain to be educated in the Catholic universities, thus being corrupted in popery and becoming evil citizens. So the college was founded on the grounds of the Priory of All Hallows, an Augustinian monastery. During the Reformation of King Henry VIII and the suppression of the religious orders, the lands were confiscated from the monks. When the college opened first, there was about 60 to 80 students attending here. They were all male, as females were not allowed to attend Trinity College until 1901. Officially, Roman Catholics were not allowed to attend the college until the 1970s, when the ban was lifted by the Roman Catholic Church. The main entrance to the college is just there on your left hand side. It's flanked by 2 of its most famous students, Edmund Burke and Oliver Goldsmith. Now inside the college today you will find the long room or the old library. This has been a copyright library since 1801, receiving a copy of every book published here in Ireland and in England. As a result of this, they have to find over 1.5 miles of shelving every year for these books. They're housed in a warehouse in the north of the city in an area called Santry. But inside of the library you will also find an exhibition called Turning Darkness into Light. And this exhibition in turn houses one of Ireland's most valued possessions. It is the early 9th century illuminated copy of the 4 Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, and is called the Book of Kells. Work began on the book in the monastery of Iona off the coast of Scotland, but after Viking raids the monks returned to Ireland and completed the Book of Kells in County Meath. Written in Latin, it is very beautifully decorated and made of over 150 vellum or calf skins. Now in the very early part of the 18th century he is a prolific property developer here in the city. And in 1710 he built himself this townhouse which you can see here on the right. This is called the Mansion House. In 1715, however, he was very gently persuaded to sell this house to Dublin City Corporation for £3,500 and since then has been the residence of the Dublin Lord Mayor. There is a round room at the back of the building which was added in 1821 to host a banquet for King George IV who came to visit us in that year. Now sticking with the right hand side of the street coming up is St Anne's Parish Church. This is an Anglican Church of Ireland but has been a parish church now since 1707. It was in this church in the year 1878 that Bram Stoker, the Dublin born author of Dracula, got married. He married a lady called Frances Balcombe and some people would say it's where all of his nightmares came true. She had previously been in a relationship with Oscar Wilde, but she refused Oscar's hand in marriage, and when they asked her why, she said, "I fancy a man with a bit more bite." Now Dawson Street is a very popular street with Dubliners. It's where we like to do most of our socialising. The side streets, the likes of this one here on your left, Duke Street, is where you'll find many of the authentic Dublin pubs. There's many of these side streets connect Dawson Street to Grafton Street, and then from Grafton Street there's more side streets which connect you to William Street, and then across over onto Georgia Street. Like I said, it's where you'll find all the best Dublin pubs. It's where we all like to do our socialising here in Dublin. So if you want to get a feel for Dublin social life, get yourself up around here. Because you've got the likes of McDade's, you've got Brussel's, you've got Grogan's, you've got Whelan's, the Duke, the Bailey, and even Davy Burns. And Davy Burns is a very famous pub because it gets a mention in the book Ulysses. To the left is Trinity College. But this building here directly in front of us to the right is the old Parliament building. This was the very first purpose-built Parliament building in the world and was opened in the year 1729, housing the Dublin Parliament, which consisted of the House of Lords and the House of Commons. The 1798 rebellion had angered and harmed the British authorities so much that all sorts of land ownership, bribes, titles and money were offered to the politicians here in Dublin to unite with the Parliament of Westminster in England. In January 1801, the Act of Union was passed uniting the two parliaments, effectively voting themselves out of existence. Jonathan Swift, the great Dean of St Patrick's Cathedral, once wrote in the building, "Just a stone's throw from the college, a world away from wit and knowledge. Tell me what that pile contains, many a head that holds no brains." This here is stop number 8. It's for the College Green, Foster Place, Trinity College, and also Church Lane. Now, you've got to do in this area. Just over here on your right hand side is Foster Place. Now if you wish to visit Dublin's Wax Museum, that's where it's located. Just here at the traffic lights in front of us, if you to our left, you're on Church Lane. And if you want to get your photograph taken with the most famous woman to have ever walked the streets of Dublin, her name is Molly Malone, it's where you can find the monuments, known to Dubliners as the Tart with the Cart. We're right facing Molly Malone here on the left hand side, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the finest pubs in Dublin in my opinion. It's called O'Neill's Tavern. It's over 300 years old. It has won the James Joyce Award on many, many occasions for being the authentic Dublin pub. But they also do a fine carvery lunch in here, and food served around 10 o'clock. You can also get a traditional Irish dinner here in O'Neill's Tavern. It consists of about 8 pints of Guinness and a packet of crisps, and it's served all day. Now most pubs do the traditional Irish dinner. This street is called Dame Street. It's named after a 12th century medieval church called the Church of St Mary Le Dame that was located on Cork Hill. Currently standing on Cork Hill today is our City Hall, and we'll be passing by it very shortly. But to the right of us is the Temple Bar area of the city. Temple Bar gets its name from Sir William Temple. He owned the land here back in the 17th century. This bar is an old word meaning the walkway along the river. Today, it's exhibition. The Christchurch Cathedral is one of 2.5 cathedrals that we have here in the city. And to give it its correct title, this is the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity of Ireland. It is an Anglican Church of Ireland. It began life, however, in the year 1038. It was built by the Norse king Sitric Silfbeard. It was a small wooden structure and was dedicated to Christianity. When the Anglo-Normans arrived here in the middle of the 12th century, they replaced the small wooden structure with this impressive stone cathedral that you see in front of me today, and it was built for the then Archbishop of Dublin, Lawrence O'Toole, in the year 1172. After the Reformation of King Henry VIII and the suppression of the religious orders, the church was confiscated from the Catholic faith and given to the Anglican faith. As the centuries rolled on, however, they did not look after it very well, and it began to fall into wreck and ruin. In the 1870s, however, thanks to the generosity of the Dublin whisky distiller, his name was Mr. Henry Rowe. He donated a considerable sum of money for the restoration of the cathedral, and he also added the adjacent Synod Hall and a neo-Gothic bridge said to be inspired by the bridge of Sides in Venice. So at the Synod Hall today you will find the Dublinia exhibition. It is a multimedia exhibition and it tells the medieval life of Dublin up until the present day. So at the cathedral itself you will find the tomb of Strongbow, the leader of the Anglo-Normans. He was not a very nice man by all accounts. He murdered his own son for showing cowardice in battle, and he done this firstly by chopping his head off. Not satisfied that he was dead enough, he then chopped him in half. There's a small structure dedicated to his son beside his crypt. Now for many years, Christchurch Cathedral would have been surrounded by a maze of laneways and alleyways. One of these laneways was called Hell. It had a carving of the devil on the archway as you approached it. The street itself was full of all sorts of dens of iniquity, gambling dens, drinking dens, and all sorts of other dens. And a newspaper of the day read, an advertisement in a newspaper of the day read, accommodation available in hell, suitable for members of the legal profession. This here is stop number 11. There are discounts available on your brochures if you wish to visit either the cathedral or Dublinia. One of the darker sides of our history here in the city, but it is also one of the most important. Kilmainham Gaol opened its doors for business back in the year 1796. This was 4 years before the Act of Union, which united the Parliament approved with that of Westminster, 2 years before the failed 1798 rebellion of Thibault and Wilton. Closing its doors in 1924, which was 1 year after the ending of the Irish Civil War and 3 years after the signing of the Anglo-Irish Treaty, which divided Ireland between the 6 counties of Northern Ireland, which remained in the United Kingdom, and the 26 counties of the Irish Free State. Given the Dominion status inside the United Kingdom, Ireland was not declared a republic until 1949. Often referred to as the Irish Bastille, Kilmainham Gaol is the largest unused prison in Europe. In its lifetime it has witnessed 5 revolutions, 1 great hunger, 1 war of independence and 1 civil war. Reading like a who's who of Irish nationalism, all of the major nationalist leaders would have been incarcerated in Kilmainham Gaol throughout its long history, all except Daniel O'Connell and Michael Collins. When the prison was opened up first, however, it was opened up as a general purpose prison with all sorts of crimes being recorded on the books, like sheep stealing, illicit distilling, highway robbery, burglary, shoplifting, pickpocketing, murder, with the largest number of inmates to be incarcerated. Now here on your right hand side, ladies and gentlemen, is the Rowan Gillespie designed monument called the Proclamation, representing 14 main leaders, each one blindfolded, and if you look closely you'll notice the holes in each figure. To the left is the main entrance to the prison itself, and behind this very imposing wall on your left is the punishment yard of Kilmainham Gaol, the stone breakers here. Now the Vikings and all settled here in Kilmainham, and during its development in the 19th century, a great many remains and artefacts belonging to the easily identified with one another, as the men were all buried with their swords and their shields, knives, daggers and helmets, whereas the women were all buried with their fine silks, their perfume jars and their household goods. The Vikings sailed up the River Liffey in around the year 841 and decided to establish their first settlements in the Wood Quay area of the city. But prior to this, they had been raiding the country for about 50 years, robbing the monasteries of much of their gold and silver and taking local people away and selling them into slavery around the Viking world. However, they realised the geographical importance of the area, its strategic value and the shelter provided by the River Liffey and its surrounding banks. The name that they gave to the area was Dublin. It is a corruption of the name Dublin, which means the Black Pool. They had established trade links with many parts of the ancient world, with the likes of the Middle East and Asia, with much of the steel used in their weapons believed to be from the Middle East, and the fine perfume jars and the silks from Asia. Differently as lights onto the Colbert Road is named after a gentleman called Cornelius Colbert. He was an officer in the Irish Volunteers during the 1916 Rising, and he held the garrison at the Genesis Whisky Distillery on Pope Street in Smithfield. At the end of the Rising, he too arrested, he too taken to Kilmainham Gaol, he too executed by firing squad in Stone Breakers Garden. To the left of us is the National War Memorial Garden. This was developed by Sir Edward Lutyens and was opened in 1933 to commemorate the 200,000 Irish men and boys who fought on behalf of the British Army during the First World War. Nearly 50,000 of these soldiers lost their lives, and when Queen Elizabeth II came to Ireland in the year 2011, she visited this garden where she laid a wreath of grave of the unknown soldier in recognition of the help and assistance they provided to England throughout the First World War. So as promised, another little tale about the Royal Hospital Kilmainham. If you look out to the right, you can get a better view of it. The architect's name for this building was a gentleman called Sir William Robbins. He was a Yorkshire man. He was also responsible for the development of Dublin Castle in the Georgian style. Built on what was once part of Phoenix Park. The Royal Hospital Kilmainham, well, not only does it house the Irish Museum of Modern Art, but many of the rooms, halls and chapel is used for various different occasions, such as state visits, visiting dignitaries, banquets, corporate events. The grounds are used for open-air concerts and also open-air festivals. Our next stop will be stop number 16. It's for Heuston Station. Developed in the 1840s in what was considered to be the golden age of Irish railway development. It was developed as the King's Bridge Station. And it was built to celebrate the amalgamation of the Great Southern and the Great Western Railways. Trains departing from here will take you down to the west and south of the country, as they did back in the 1840s. But in 1966 it was renamed Heuston Station to celebrate the birth of Whitney. Now, believe that, you believe anything. It was to commemorate Sean Heuston. He was another leader from the 1916 Rising. The building itself is said to be one of the finest examples of Victorian architecture still here in the city today. Anybody getting out of Heuston Station? If not, we'll just stay out here on the road. You can ring the bell if you want to get out. See you now, bye-bye. See you now, good luck. See you now, bye-bye. See you now, thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, man. Thank you. See you now, good luck. Bye-bye.